Hello students. Today we are going to discuss about your history method paper. We are in unit 2 and source method. I am going to discuss with you source method. As we know, history is the study of past, and we can't observe our past directly. We have to depend on some materials that are related to our past. So we have to depend on the available materials from our past. These materials are known as sources. Sources are can be divided into two types. First is archaeological source and literary source. Archaeological source again is divided into three types. One is monuments, second is epigraphic, then third is numismatic. Monuments are include the temple, buildings and images from our past, and epigraphy are the rock edict, the pillar edict and the copper plates which are available from our past, and numismatic is the study of coins. So first you just remember that the material which help us to collect information about our past is known as sources. Sources are broadly divided into two types. One is archaeological source and second is literary source. Archaeological source again divided into three types. First is monument, then epigraphy, then numismatic. Monument include the temples, buildings and the images. Epigraphy contain the rock edict, the pillar edict and the copper plates, and numismatic is the study of coins or the coins available from our past. Then second is literary sources, the information of ancient literature like Veda, Upanishad, Purana and Tripitaka, any other religious books and the books written by Kalidasa, Aryabhatta and Fahy and Megasthenes are the great source of our literary source. First is historians divide source into two types, archaeological source and literary source. Archaeological source contain monument, epigraphic and numismatic, and literary source contain the books or the diaries, the Purana and our Veda, Upanishad, etc. Then again these sources are divided into again two types. First is primary source and second is secondary source. What is primary source? Primary source are the original sources from which we gain the information, like our remains of the past, like the buildings, the monuments, temples, etc. The secondary source is derived from the original source. Whatever we derive the information from the original ones, they are known as the secondary source. So first what we discussed is that source is broadly divided into two types, that is archaeological, literary. Then again archaeological is three types and literary is our Veda, Upanishad. Then history is divided into two types, primary source and secondary source. Primary source are the original sources and secondary sources are the information that is derived from the original or the primary sources. So, example are the books written by different historians, and the primary source examples are the buildings, monuments, temples, etc. Then again the source of history or the sources to collect information about our past is again divided into history is divided into modern period, then proto-historic period, then prehistory period. Modern period is that period where we can have the written documents about our past. In modern period, the written records are available, like the biographies, autobiographies, diaries, letters, etc. from our past. In modern historical period, we can have direct information from about our past from the biography, autobiography, letters, diaries, etc. Then in proto-historic period, there is no written records are available. No written records are available. So how can we elicit information about that period? Through inscription, edict, temple, coins, etc. Then prehistory period. This period is particularly known as dark period because there is no written record or nothing is available, any inscriptions, any edit, any temple, any coin is not available from this prehistory period. So how can we have information about that period? Just from the fossils of humans and animals, we get some information about our past. So these are the sources of history. First is sources divided into archaeological, literary, archaeological, monument, epigraphy, numismatic. Literary sources are Veda, Upanishad. Then again sources are divided into primary and secondary. Primary is the original one and secondary is the information that we gained from the original one. Then again history divided into three types. Modern period where written records are available. Proto-history period, even if there is no written records are available, but from the inscription, from the archaeology, from the monuments, we can have some information. We can go to our past and have information. And in prehistory period, this is known as completely dark period, and the fossils of remains of our fossils of humans and animals. From that we gain the information about our history. So these are the sources of history method. But how can the teacher can use these sources whenever he or she is imparting the teaching learning process in the classroom situation? First of all, the teacher must depend on some what we can say, the specialist, the archaeologist or the geologist, from with the help of whom the teacher can gain a lot more information and can present the things in front of the students clearly and make them understand about their past history. So teacher can take the help of the archaeologist, geologist and the experts. And again, the language and scripts are difficult to understand in these sources of history. So historians must have a power of imagination and foresight to study this information, to make the teaching of history lively and make the students motivated to learn history and make it more interesting in the classroom. Teachers should introduce the students in such a manner that they take themselves, motivate themselves. Certain things like excursions to visit the historical places, to historical museums, so that they can directly gain and come in contact with the monuments, temple, building images, rock edit, pillar edit, coins, the pottery, the dress, the weapons, everything. Whenever they go to the museum, they gain direct information about their past events and can gain real experiences. After their visit to a historical places or to a museum, teacher can teacher can say them to teacher can discuss whatever they gained information, what is their experience in that excursion and from that visit of museum, etc. They may write an essay on their visit. A questionnaire like question answer must be done by the teacher, so that students learn a lot from their visit and from the museums. So firstly, this source method is meant for the higher class students, because they can understand, they can create their own ideas, they can explain whatever they see, whatever they receive the ideas from the old old sources. This source method is meant for higher level or you can say high school students. So whenever a teacher use the source method in the upper level high school students or meant for higher classes, he or she, the teacher must have pay much attention so that students learn the facts, figures clearly and understand the things, can realize the past in a very clear manner. So a lot of advantages are there in source method. First advantage to use the source method by the teacher is students can develop insight into their past history. So or they can develop insight into history. Second one is it gives an atmosphere of past. Whenever they visit to a temple, a building, a monument, whenever they see the picture, whenever they visit to a museum, whenever the picture, the models are presented before the students, it gives an atmosphere of the past. They can realize, they can imagine about the past. So this gives an atmosphere of the past. Next is it develops the thinking, imagination, analyzing, self-expression, discussion among themselves. Students can develop the qualities of thinking, imagination, self-expression by this method. The next one is students develop a sense of reality. As we know that history is the study of past. So whenever they whenever they relate their present with their past, they sense the reality. The next is this students can develop research attitude among themselves. They want to know, develop a research attitude to investigate themselves about their history. The next is students can get practical experiences. Then next is students can relate their present life with the past life. But in spite of all these advantages, certain disadvantages are also there in using this source method. What are the disadvantages? First is it is difficult to follow this method, as the sources are not inside the classroom, inside the institution. So we have to take the students to a historical place, a temple, a building, an image, edit, show them coins, etc. so that they can have live experiences, they can get real experiences. But it is difficult to present always all those things inside a classroom situation. Next one is, in this method, if a teacher is following the source method, he or she must be trained properly. He or she must have much knowledge about the sources of the history. Then third one is, it is difficult to use in all topics of history. It is difficult because we can't introduce all the topics through source method. The next is sources have several languages which may the teacher is not able to understand, because the language from the present and the past is different, so it is difficult for the teacher to understand those languages. The next one is this method is very lengthy and time taking. Since we know our academic session is very limited period, and we have to perform certain academic, non-academic activities. So if we follow this method in our academic session, in all our topics, all our chapters, it is very lengthy and time taking. So next one is conflicting views of historians make the students confused. We know that different historians make different views on a particular topic. So whenever a student is following the source method and studying the views of historians, he or she may confuse himself. Then next one is this source method is not free from historians' own prejudice, own fault, own preferences and own limitations. They give their opinion according to their own ideas, own knowledge, own understanding. It is not 100%. We can say 100% certain for that topic or for that source. So prejudices, fault and preferences and limitations are always happened with the source method. So whenever a teacher who is following this source method must be conscious about these disadvantages and accordingly follow this method, which can help the students can realize their past events, can improve their insight, can improve their thought, can improve their imagination, analyzing capacity, self-expression, discussion capacity among themselves, and they develop a positive attitude towards history learning and towards learning of history subject. Thank you.